the Middle Ages, winter was not a season to enjoy. It was an enemy to endure. The wind pushed through crooked doors, the roofs leaked cold water into bowls, and the hearths often held nothing but grey ash. Food ran low, boots froze stiff, and the fields lay silent beneath frost and crows. This is not a story of kings in warm halls, but of the villagers who woke each day to damp wool, empty hands, and a sky the color of iron. Tonight, we step into that cold to feel what it meant to survive a medieval winter. In the Middle Ages wasn't a season, it was a slow siege. The sun vanished, the food ran thin, and the cold crept into your bones and stayed there. This isn't a tale of knights or kings. It's about you, a forgotten villager, wrapped in damp wool, trying not to freeze, starve, or cough yourself into the grave. So close the shutters, huddle by the ashes, and listen. This is what it was like to survive a medieval winter. You wake before sunrise, because it's always dark now. It's not just the absence of light. It's a kind of cold black stillness that seeps through the cracks in your walls and into your bones. Time feels slower in winter, like the sun itself is hesitant to show up. Your breath floats in the air, like smoke. You watch it dissolve while lying completely still under a blanket that gave up 2 weeks ago. The wool is damp again. Everything is damp. Even your skin has a wetness to it that no fire seems to fix. A permanent, itchy humidity, born of leaky roofs and defeated ceilings. Your toes are numb. You wiggle them out of habit, not hope. The fire has gone out. Again, you stare at the blackened pit, now just a memory of warmth. The logs are ashes. The ashes are cold. You prod the remnants with a stick, mostly out of ritual. Nothing happens, but you pretend it might. It makes you feel like you tried. Your house smells like everything it shouldn't. Wet wool, sour smoke, mildew, goat breath. In summer, it smelled of onions and outside. In autumn, it was crisp air and damp leaves. Now, it's winter, and everything smells like defeat. The thatch drips rhythmically. You've placed a broken bowl beneath the worst leak. It's already full. You'll empty it later, or you won't. There's no rush in winter, only tasks that feel less urgent and more inevitable. You pull the blanket tighter and sit up, joints cracking like frozen branches. Your back aches, your knees ache, your fingers feel like someone else's. You glance toward the window, because you expect to see anything, but because it's the only way to know if morning has bothered to arrive. The glass is fogged. Ice crusts the corners. You draw a line in it with your finger and instantly regret it. Your fingertip stings. Chicken is dead outside the door. Frozen stiff, head at an awkward angle, like it fell asleep in the middle of squawking. You stare at it for a long time. You don't mourn it. You envy it. It doesn't have to get through the rest of the week. You remember summer, briefly. Sunlight on bare skin. Green things that didn't bite back. The creek, the garden, a breeze. That didn't come with warnings. But it feels like a story someone else told you. A lie whispered by a past self who didn't know any better. No food yet. You chew a crust from 2 days ago. It cracks like bark. It tastes like dust and old flour. You tell yourself it's better than nothing. Then you remember you've said that every day for a month now, and that it keeps getting truer. You find your boots by the door. They're still wet from yesterday's errands. If hauling ice to fill a bucket counts as errands. You know they'll never truly dry again. Not until spring. Not unless you sit by the fire all day and do nothing. And No one has that kind of luxury. So you grit your teeth, force them on, and ignore the squelch. You wrap a rag around your shoulders. It smells like someone else's armpit. Might have been yours once. Doesn't matter now. Warmth matters more than pride, and you lost that sometime. Around the second snow, your breath comes out in steady puffs as you open the door and step outside. The air slaps your face, not sharply, but with a dull, wet hand. Everything is grey. The sky, the mud, the walls, your thoughts, trees stand like skeletal witnesses to the season's slow trial. Frost clings to the fence post like it's hiding from the wind. Your footsteps crunch, then squish, then slide. You don't fall, not this time. You count that as a win. The fields are empty now. No crops, no movement, just earth in hibernation and crows picking at frozen remains. The village is silent. Fires haven't been lit yet. Smoke hasn't begun its morning crawl into the sky. You listen, but there's nothing. No bells, no voices. Just the wind moving sideways and the occasional creak of something that probably shouldn't be moving. Your stomach growls, loud enough to echo. You ignore it. There's work to be done. Or, more accurately, there's work that refuses not to exist. It's not urgent. Nothing is. But if you don't gather firewood today, you'll be colder tomorrow. And if you're colder tomorrow, you might not wake up. And that's how winter wins. Not with storms, but with slow attrition. Little more tired, a little more hungry, a little more cold. You pick up the axe. It's dull, so are you. That's fine. Winter doesn't need you sharp. It just needs you compliant. Tomorrow might be colder. Or not. You don't try to guess anymore. You exhale, fog, then silence. You start walking, and behind you, a bowl fills slowly with another drip from the roof. They call it the famine months for a reason. Not because it sounds poetic. Not because it's some old peasant saying passed down by fireside. No, they call it that because it's honest. Everything about this time of year is honest. Painfully so. The cupboards are empty. The pigs are gone. The stew is mostly water. Winter doesn't allow for illusions. The grain store sits in the corner of the hut, half rotted and half empty. You used to keep it sealed with wax and linen. Now it's patched with rags, dirt, and a single desperate prayer. You open the lid and see only the bottom. A few dusty handfuls. Enough for another week, maybe, if you pretend not to be hungry. Last year's salted meat is a memory. A shriveled string of sinew and disappointment. What's left is bone picked over, boiled twice, and still sitting in the pot like it might release one more whisper of flavor. You gnawed on one yesterday. It splintered. You spat blood and kept chewing. You ladle out porridge again, thin, grey, almost liquid. It sloshes in the cracked clay bowl like something indecisive. It's not oatmeal, it's not soup, it's sustenance. In the technical sense, bits float in it. You don't ask what they are anymore. It's easier that way. Sometimes you find a weevil, or a beetle, or something smaller. You call it protein and move on. That's the new wisdom. If it doesn't move, you eat it. If it does, you wait until it stops. Turnips, though, always turnips. Turnips in stew, turnips roasted, turnip mash, turnip gruel. You dream of stabbing a turnip, not even cooking it, just stabbing it, repeatedly, to get the rage out. You used to joke about them. Now you just chew and swallow. And dream of onions. The ale is sour. It always is, but now it's worse. You drink it anyway, because the well froze last week, and the river is suicide, thin ice and deeper regret. Someone fell through last winter. They didn't scream, just vanished. The village doesn't talk about it. Like if you ignore the river long enough, it might go away. A neighbor stops by. He says nothing, just holds out a strip of something dry and leathery. Fish, he grunts. You're not sure what kind. Could be fish. Could be rat. Could be the same animal you heard squealing last Thursday. Doesn't matter. You take it, chew it, and thank him. Not with words, just a nod. Words take energy. You ration everything now. Even conversation. Salt used to be precious. Now it's mythical. The roads are blocked. The traders are dead or missing. And your last saltstone crumbled weeks ago. You tried licking the inside of an old jar, just to remember the taste. Now you season food with smoke and memory. The children are quieter now, not because they're better behaved, just hungrier. No energy to cry, no strength to play. One of them gnaws on a piece of leather, just to keep the jaw busy. You don't stop them. It's the same strap you once used to bind sacks of barley. You wonder which was more valuable. The chickens haven't laid in days. The cold gets into their bones too. You think about eating one, but you're saving them for worse days. Somehow, there are still worse days. That's what winter teaches you. Things can always thin out more. You trade for a few things, here and there, a clump of dried herbs, a small wedge of something that used to be cheese, a half-burnt loaf from the baker's wife, who swears it's only a little mouldy. You scrape off the green and pretend it's just spice. You've started dreaming about bread. Not real bread, just the idea of it. Warm, fluffy, golden-crusted. You imagine tearing it open and steam rising. You wake up chewing your own tongue. Someone mentions a feast day next week. You all laugh, quietly. The kind of laugh that more bones than breath. Dinner tonight will be the same as breakfast. Same as yesterday. Porridge with a dash of resignation. You stir the pot again. It bubbles like it resents being looked at. You add water to stretch it, then stir again. It's thinner now. That means it will last longer. Probably outside, the sky is getting darker. Or maybe it's not. Maybe your eyes are just tired. Tomorrow you'll eat the same thing again. Unless the neighbor comes back. Or unless the chickens die. Or unless the turnips run out. But tonight, you chew. You swallow. You try not to dream about meat, and when the cold comes back under the door, you let it. Hunger is louder anyway. The cold isn't sharp. Not anymore. Sharp would be a mercy, a clean sting, a slap. Something you could shake off with a breath and a curse. No, this cold is dull, heavy, exhausted. It lies on your shoulders like wet wool and presses behind. Your eyes, it doesn't bite. It lingers. It clings. It becomes part of you. You sit by the fire, or what passes for one. It's not much, a few coals, barely glowing, fed with damp twigs and false hope. You hold your hands out to it. Nothing. You push your knees closer. Still nothing. You sit so near that smoke coats your teeth, and your eyes sting like they've been salted, but you feel nothing. Not even your own skin. You try to warm your spirit. It doesn't respond. The hut leaks, always. From the roof, the walls, the floor, your memory. You've patched it with everything you have. Rags, mud, bits of old tunic. But the wind always finds the gaps. It slips in under doors, through cracks under your skin. It's not just wind anymore. It has personality. It moans. It whispers. It rattles shutters like it's laughing. You've started calling it something under your breath. The wind has a name now. You hate it. You layer your clothes like you're trying to build a second skin. Linen, then wool, then more linen, then whatever else you can find, a sackcloth, a curtain, even the old dog's blanket. Still cold, always cold. The layers hold in moisture more than warmth, and now you're just wet and cold. You tell yourself it's better than nothing. It eyes in single quotes that the baby won't stop coughing. A small rattling sound that goes on for hours. No one does anything. There's nothing to do. You rub his chest with tallow, whisper old rhymes, hold him close to your body and pretend your heartbeat counts as heat. It doesn't. His skin is clammy. His hands are pale. You close your eyes and pretend it's normal. The old man across the lane stopped coughing last week. You noticed the silence. That was the first sign. Then the smell. Then the priest. You helped carry him out. He was light, too light. Cold all the way through. When the priest said he's gone to a warmer place, no one laughed. Your own toes have turned white. Not pale, white. You stare at them some nights, poking them like unfamiliar fruit. There's no feeling left. You think about cutting a hole in your boot to let them breathe. Then you realize that wouldn't help. Then you realize you're thinking about your toes like they're already gone. You stop thinking. You wrap straw around your legs. Old trick. Everyone does it. Supposed to trap heat. Mostly it traps fleas. You don't care. You'll take it. You'd wrap your body in ash if it promised to be warm. You once stood over a fire pit until the soles of your boots started to soften. You stayed a little longer anyway. The walls sweat in the mornings. Cold droplets gather and run in slow streaks, like tears. Your bedding is always damp. So is your hair. Your skin never dries fully, not even next to the hearth. You're not sure if it's water or just the cold refusing to leave. Your bones ache, not from work, not from age, just from existence. You used to dream of warm things. Blankets, sun, the bakery down the road with the big stone oven. Now, your dreams are cold. You shiver in them. You wake up colder than when you fell asleep. Sometimes you think you dreamed the cold into being. Other times it feels like the cold dreamed you. You drink something hot, a broth made of boiled weeds, and regret. It warms your lips, then disappears somewhere inside, swallowed by the frost within. Your hands shake, your teeth click. You chew a corner of stale bread and let it soften in your mouth like snowdot. Outside, the ground is solid. The frost has settled, in like a tenant with a permanent lease. The woodpile is low. The sun is absent. You stare at the walls and see your breath curling in the air like a ghost. You get up slowly. Every movement creaks. You're stiff, not with age, but with freezing repetition. The baby whimpers. The wind sighs. You patch another hole in the roof, then sit back down by the fire that doesn't warm you. Tomorrow, you'll try again. You'll layer up, light the fire, boil something, and press your fingers to the coals just to feel the lie of heat. The cold will still be there, but so will you. There is no such thing as rest. Not here, not now. Winter doesn't ask less of you. It just asks different. The plough might be sleeping, buried somewhere under a lean-to behind the hut, but your body is still being spent. You chop wood, haul water, you patch leaks. Then you do it all again the next day, in the same wet boots, with the same sore hands. You can't grow crops in frozen earth, but the work still finds you. It always does. You fix the same hole in the roof every 5 days. You've given up trying to make it permanent. The straw rots, the mud crumbles, the wind pries it open like a thief who knows your house better than you do. You stand on a stool with numb fingers, trying to wedge in another handful of reeds, hoping this time the rain won't find a way through. It always does. But you patch it anyway, because pretending to win is all that's left. The animals need feeding, so do the fleas. You drag hay from the barn and scatter it into the goat pen, where half-frozen beasts blink at you like you're the one who brought this endless grayness. One of the chickens has vanished, probably died, or wandered off into the snow, or got eaten. Either way, one less mouth to feed. You're not sure if you feel relief or guilt. Probably both. Probably neither. You don't feel much these days. The fleas never leave. Even in the cold, you scratch without thinking, behind your knee, along your ribs. You know where they live. You've stopped trying to wash them out. Water is too precious and clean. Is a luxury people can't afford when their breath fogs indoors. You drag a sled of dung across the ice. The neighbors say it's important. The compost pile needs turning, or the manure needs aging, or something vaguely agricultural. You just do it because it's something to do. It gives your hands a task and your feet a purpose. The sled jerks. Along the icy path, you slip once, land hard, you curse, then you get back up. That's winter work. Slipping, cursing, continuing. Snow is pretty if you've never lived in it. If you're inside warm with a bowl of stew and a dry pair of socks. But snow out here is death in disguise. It fills your boots, freezes your toes, turns paths to ice and roofs to traps. It glows softly in the moonlight like it wants you to admire it. You don't, you hate it. You walk with stiff legs and stare down, just trying not to fall again. Time passes, supposedly. You don't feel it. You mark days now by spoons of lard. You had 13 spoons 2 weeks ago. You have 4 now. That's how you measure the calendar. That, and how far the icicles have crawled down the thatch, like frozen fangs threatening to bite. The church bell rings. You forgot what day it is. Feast day, Saint's Day, doesn't matter. You don't go anymore. Your boots leak, and the fire is too weak to risk letting it die while you pretend to be holy. You whisper prayers while stirring porridge. You hope that counts. Your hands are swollen, not from injury, but from repeated use. Your palms are cracked. You try not to bleed into the dough. The bucket of water froze again overnight, and you chip at it with the back of a spoon, pretending it's soup. The spoon bends. You use your hand. It works eventually. You patch the door. You sweep the hearth. You shake the straw mattress to scare out the rats. None of it changes anything. But if you stop moving, you'll notice how cold your fingers are. You'll notice how loud the silence is. Even when you sit down, your eyes stay busy. Watching the leak, watching the fire, watching the roof sag just a little more each day. You tell yourself it's just the season, just winter doing its work. But deep down, you know it's not the season breaking, it's you. And yet, somehow, tomorrow you'll get up again. You'll haul the water. You'll drag the dung. You'll fix the roof that never stays fixed. Because the work doesn't end. It just becomes the way you live. You start to notice it more now. Not the cold, but what comes with it. The coughs. Everyone has one. Dry at first, then deep, rattling, wet, like something trying to crawl up from the lungs and escape. At night, it echoes in the rafters, through walls, through the village, as familiar and constant as the wind. They call it winter lung. The midwife says that with a shrug, as if it were no more than a nuisance, like muddy boots or moldy cheese. But you've seen what it really means. You've seen the slow slump of someone sitting too long, the breath gone shallow, the color retreating. Winter lung is just a waiting game. Sometimes people win, more often they don't. Your cousin hasn't come out of his hut in 3 days. The smoke from his chimney stopped yesterday. You stood outside this morning, pretending to be on your way to the well. You stared at the door for a while, thought about knocking, didn't. If he's gone, someone else will notice. If he's not, he'll open the door himself when he wants to. That's how it is now. Everyone lives behind thin walls and thick silence. You sit still more often now, not resting, just existing, trying to measure the ache in your joints. One elbow feels worse than it did last week. Your hip clicks now. Your breath sometimes whistles through your teeth when it shouldn't. Something inside isn't right. You know that, but you don't know what it is, and there's no one to ask. You just wait. You let it settle deeper. It always does. There's a smell in the house. Sharp, sour. Could be something rotting. Could be whatever's in the pot. You lift the lid, stare at it. Don't remember putting anything in there. Maybe someone else did. Maybe it was yesterday, or last week. Either way, it's food now. Probably no one visits. Not anymore. The cold makes liars of your legs and cowards of your hands. You don't want to go out. They don't want to come in. You used to hear singing from the neighbor's hut. The wife used to hum while she churned. She doesn't hum now. She doesn't churn either. You think the child died, or maybe just left. Same thing, really. The silence is strange. It's not peaceful. It creaks, it drips, it groans through the walls and hisses under the door. You find yourself speaking aloud just to hear something. One word, maybe two, mostly to the fire, once to a rat. It blinked at you and left. You dream of warmth, of blankets not damp, of soup that doesn't taste like rust. You dream of summer, sometimes. But even your dreams are fading now. Last night, you dreamt you were sweating. Then you woke up and realized it was true. Then you shivered. Then you sweated again. You don't know what that means. You tell yourself it's just a bad dream that didn't know when to end. The priest passed by yesterday, mumbled something about penance, about sin and suffering and how they go hand in hand. You muttered something about soup. He didn't hear, or pretended not to. You didn't chase him. What would be the point? You sit by the fire and listen to the wind test the roof again. You cough into your sleeve and pretend it's nothing. You chew something dry and tasteless and try not to count the number of spoons left in the lard jar. The days are shorter now, or maybe longer. You're not sure. They blur together. You haven't seen the sun in over a week. You haven't heard laughter in even longer. You wrap yourself tighter in blankets that do nothing. You close your eyes and breathe shallow. That's how everyone breathes now. The cold used to be the enemy. Now it's just the silence you fear. The kind that settles after the last cough. But tomorrow, if it comes, will be the same. The same cough, the same stew, the same waiting. Because that's what winter is. waiting for spring, waiting to see who makes it there. A drip falls from the eaves. You stare at it for hours. You're not sure why. Maybe because it's not ice. Maybe because it's something moving. It lands in the same patch of mud again and again, carving a small crater of hope. Or maybe rot. You can't tell anymore. Somewhere in the early hours, the goat gave birth. Early, too early, probably. You weren't there when it happened. Just found her trembling in the straw, the kid already wobbling beside her. It might live. That would be something. You might live too. That would be something else entirely. The mud is returning. Good and also bad. The ground is softening, but so is everything else. Your walls, your boots, your patience. Frozen misery has become wet misery, the kind that seeps through your souls and into your soul. You used to hate the snow. Now you miss how clean it looked. At least it had boundaries. You think about the sun. Try to remember how it smells. There was a time, wasn't there, when warmth had a scent, dust in a beam of light, bread rising, hay baking in the loft. Now everything smells of damp wool and old smoke, and something beneath that, older and fainter, the season's long breath exhaling slowly out of the earth. A bird sang today, or maybe that was a dream. The note was so quick, you couldn't be sure. You looked up, nothing there but clouds and skeletal branches. You listened for more, but it didn't come. You haven't heard it again. Still, the sound is stuck in your head like a splinter, something small and sharp and foreign. A noise from a world that isn't frozen. You plant something in a pot by the fire, just in case. A bean, maybe, or a scrap of onion. Something that has no right surviving, but you do it anyway. You don't expect much. Just movement, green, the idea of life. Even if it fails, it gives your hands something to do, and that's nearly the same as hope. The worst might be over, or it might not. You don't say that out loud. No one does. Saying it invites the wind back. Saying it makes the frost come again. There's a superstition to survival. Keep your voice low, your steps soft, your expectations buried, just in case winter's still listening. You stir the porridge again. Still grey, still edible, still not crawling. You eat it slowly, as if tasting matters. It doesn't, but you do it anyway. You chew like it's your job. You swallow like it's a prayer. You're still here. That's more than some can say. The bell at the chapel rang yesterday. That's rare. Someone must have died, or maybe recovered. There's not much middle ground anymore. Either the fever wins, or it gives up. Either you cough your lungs out, or you get up and feed the chickens again, if they're still alive. Outside, a trickle of water runs down the lane. Not quite a stream, but close. It smells like thaw, like earth waking up slow and grumpy. You crouch beside it and watch a leaf float past. You imagine it's a boat. You imagine it's going somewhere warm. You step back inside. The fire needs tending. The goat needs watching. The child still coughs, but less than yesterday. Maybe that's progress. Maybe not. You wrap a blanket around your shoulders and sit near the hearth. You don't look outside again. The sky is still grey. The trees are still bare. Spring hasn't come yet, but it's close. You think. You hope. Quietly. So that was winter. Not a battle, just a long surrender. A season of shrinking, of outlasting, of chewing the same root 5 different ways and calling it variety. you didn't win, you just didn't die. And somehow, that's enough. The fire is burning again. The mud is soft again. The birds are thinking about singing again. You'll try to sleep now, and maybe this time you won't dream of turnips or frozen boots.